Hello and welcome to episode number 87 of the WP Café show with Mark Wilkinson and me, Keith Devon. Today we are going to be talking about WordPress components, something that came up this morning for me actually in a mastermind call I had. So hat tip to the fellas in the call who pointed me in this direction. So we'll talk about WordPress components, what they actually are. They're not actually called components, but we'll get into that. Got another few other topics today to discuss. Maybe talk about proposals. I've been spending a lot of time writing a proposal recently, so I can talk about that process and what that's been like. Mark, you put something about it's getting harder to contribute to WordPress core. So
just
interested to hear. Yeah, interested to hear your thoughts on that. As always, we love to get people's feedback and questions and comments in the comments section if you're watching live on YouTube. If you're watching along live, please also just say hello.
Or on Twitter.
It's always nice to see who's there. Yeah, we're also live on X, and obviously you can also get us in your favorite podcast player. Let's get going. So WordPress components. This came, like I said, from a chat this morning with some of the fellas that I kind of get together with every week online. I hadn't come across it, but Jamie, it feels like we're like it's just like a promotional channel for Poodle Press for Jamie Morrison, but we do love him. We do love his stuff. So if you haven't checked out Poodle Press on YouTube, please do. But I think it's his latest video is what he's calling, I think, talking about WordPress components. They're not officially called components, but they are a sort of synced pattern where we can change the design. We can lock certain parts of it, change the design, and it changes across the whole site. It's basically exactly what we asked for whenever the block editor came about. It's like, how are we going to create components that we can reuse across the site but change the content in them? And this is coming. It is currently in the Gutenberg plugin. You can play with it today. I think it's potentially coming in the next major version of WordPress, which is sometime this summer, hopefully.
So I haven't watched the video. Sorry, Jamie, but I haven't watched the video yet. I did see it on my YouTube homepage and I will watch it. Is this sort of the common example that I always think about is, let's say you've created a 3-column call to action on a website, maybe, and you know that might have like a picture and a like an excerpt and then a button. Yeah. And let's say you've used that on several pages, maybe with different call to actions, like different content, but the pattern of the way in which it's presented is the same. If the client comes back to us and says, actually, I want to insert a tagline into those. Yeah. At the moment, there's no way of doing that across the board, or I want to insert a date, something that's dynamic. So you don't need to go and type it in differently on each block, but you want to put this extra thing. There's no way of doing that for all of those instances. Is that what we're talking about here? It's going to allow you to do that. So yeah, I guess my question, I haven't seen it, you have. How does it work? How does it actually do that?
So from what I can gather, it's a synced pattern.
Yep.
But within that synced pattern, you can set certain elements to be overridable. So okay. I could create a pattern. So using like a call to action example, I could create a pattern and it's a columns block. And in the first column, it's got like a heading and a button. And then the second column, it's got an image or something like that. I could set the heading text, the buttons, and the image to be overridable, but the structure of it is controlled centrally, if that makes sense. So each individual instance of this component can have different text in the title. It can use a different image. It can have different buttons. Maybe you want to keep the buttons the same. You could just not make those overridable. But then what you could do, for example, is you change the background color of the columns block. I don't even know if you
yeah.
could do that. But something like that, you could change a background color or something, and that change would be across everywhere it's used on the site. So we can make global changes to synced patterns in ways that I don't think you can currently do. And it looks like a fairly easy user interface to use to do that. Essentially, you just set the things that are editable.
So can you set what is editable? As in, you can edit this button, but you can't change the design of this button. You can literally edit the text and a link.
That I don't know. That I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if you select if you select a button and say this button is overridable, what does that actually mean? Does it mean the link is the URL? Does it mean the text? Does it mean the button style? Does it mean
Does it mean I can override it with a paragraph?
Yeah.
As in I can take that away? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think but it's a good question. And the same for the image block. I mean, I'm assuming that the idea there is that it stays as an image block, but you can change the settings of that image. So we can change the source, the image source, and we can change whatever within that. But yeah, that's all stuff that I would need to experiment with now. But
we already have a mechanism, I think, for content. Yeah. I was going to say content locked, but actually the content isn't locked. It's everything else is locked. I think we already have a mechanism for that, don't we? I don't know what it's called. Let me know in the comments if you know what it's called. Like here's a pattern, and everything is locked, but I can change the content of that pattern. So I can put a new image in, I can type a different heading in, I can type a different paragraph in. We already have that. So I guess it's a combination of that alongside this new capability. Because I might want to create this pattern using the same one. I might want to say, I might want to say, this is a pattern where, I do want the users to be able to choose between a red button and a green button, maybe by a style, a block style. But I also might want the pattern where I actually don't want any design changes to be made to this at all. I just want the user to be able to change the text of the button, the image, the paragraph, etc. So there's two sort of levels of customization that we might require. I wonder if it serves those purposes.
Yeah, and exactly. And whenever I was talking to the guys this morning, I was like, can we not already do this? Well, my first instinct was, I thought there was like you just described, ways that we can lock things down already, but I think that this is a fundamental change to that. So it's not. Right.
So that's going to change to this.
I don't know. I don't know if these are complementary things or if they're actually different concepts.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure. So I need to dig in. I've literally just watched the video basically, so I haven't had time to dig into it. But I just thought it was it seems like exactly what we were asking for. It was interesting in that conversation about it this morning. The major concern seems to be how this is saved, how all this data is saved and then updated, because you're using these, let's keep calling them components or synced patterns across the whole website, and then you're making a change, but these patterns aren't stored centrally. So if you make a change, it needs to do a database search for the whole post table and do some kind of crazy regex to like.
Well, is it not just pulling in like a reusable block from another place though? So if I don't know how your reusable block works, but if I push a reusable block, it's just referencing the original block, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's different, isn't it? Because it's not just reused, because the content's different. So I think the way it's saved is different, which means it's saved uniquely to every post. Which means when you make a global change, you need to update it across the whole post table.
Yeah, understand.
Which is expensive. It's expensive as an editor, but not on the front end.
Well, once it's edited, it should be fine, shouldn't it? But maybe they need to save the non-allowable, I don't know what the word is, like the stuff that I'm not allowed to change as an editor in the block editor.
Yeah.
As in the global reusable blog post, if that makes sense. And then anything that I can change, only that's stored in the post. Yep. So that wouldn't change if I make, well, I might just, because if you had a new component, it would, didn't it? Yeah, it's quite complicated, isn't it?
Yep.
Maybe that's why we've had to wait this long for it.
Yeah. I mean, the implementation of it looks very simple, which is what you want as a user interface. But yeah, behind the scenes, I think it's potentially a bit messy at the minute. But I think arguably a lot of what's going on with Gutenberg and the way data is saved is very messy because we're using HTML comments here and HTML templates over there, and it's whatever. But if it works well, then I don't think that WordPress has always been particularly well optimized from a database point of view. So we're already there. So maybe this is just continuation of that philosophy. But as long as it works as a tool for site builders and users, then
be interesting to ask the audience, like, is this something that you have been waiting for, or is this something that actually people have already solved using other things and therefore they're not even going to use it? So because they've already done it in a different way, maybe with ACF blocks or with not using the block editor or something else. It'd be interesting to see. And is this something that you think, oh yeah, this is something we'd really use? Because I think from our discussions with other agency owners and developers, this was something that was holding people back from using the block editor. This concept of being able to, push a change in Git and it populates the whole site. Whereas at the moment, it seems as though you have to go into every post and start editing it. So it'd be interesting to see what people are thinking.
Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly jump into the comments. We've got a few hellos. So, hi Joe, nice to have you here. Hi Jackson, Paul, and Elliot's chipped in with components is coming in 6.6 July 2024. So I'm thinking, Mark, on the next project we build, we should probably be using this.
Definitely. We're on 6.5 now, aren't we? Yeah, we are.
Yeah. And Joe said this makes the block editor a lot more appealing for larger sites, in my opinion. 100% agree. I think that was our worry. Like if you're building small brochure sites that are, 10 to 20 pages, it's not so much a concern. If you're building big enterprise level or even medium size sites, we need this stuff.
Comes back to my original point. I know a lot of the people that are building big enterprise sites, as in, they're not that many of them anyway, but they've already done these things with the block editor. So have they already solved this in a different way? Or maybe they've solved it and this is being built out of what they've already done. Maybe, I don't know. That's how WordPress works sometimes. So
yeah,
cool. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So something to look at and play with, experiment with, and I think it will be a very, very important part of our tool set going forward.
But to be clear, you must be using the current version of the Gutenberg plugin.
Yeah, it's
to
not
actually get hold of this stuff. Yeah, that's fine. Cool.
Yeah,
very good, very good. We will play with that. I'll watch that video as well because obviously it's good to get a handle on
and just another little Jamie plug. He's doing these speed build challenges at the minute. I don't know if anyone's seen them, but essentially he's getting 2 developers to try to build a page in WordPress. So a current website, he takes a current website and says, how close can you get in half an hour? And he has the two developers going head to head on it. I've caught parts of the first 2. Haven't sat down and watched the whole episode through, but I do find it interesting to see how people approach using the block editor. And so far, I think it's purely been the block editor. I think all 4 contestants so far have been using basically the native full site editing block editor experience. I would love to see someone using something else. I would love to see an Elementor versus the block editor. I would love to see an Astra or whatever.
I would love to see someone just build it in HTML and CSS. Might be a bit difficult for 30 minutes, but
that I don't think they'd get close. I don't know. I think that'd be really tough. Oh, I might be wrong actually. I don't know. That would be good actually. That would be good.
I suppose
a good matchup.
So what? Like the block editor essentially gives you the markup, doesn't it? I know it gives you the. So if you could
and CSS.
Yeah, it gives. Yeah, but I think if a person had the markup, I think they could style it in 30 minutes if you were pretty nifty with CSS and think you'd get close. I haven't seen like how much there is. I presume this is not a whole website. This is just like, I don't know, elements on a page, or I don't know how big it is. But
I would say fair play to the people that have signed up to be contestants for this, because like it's pretty it's pressure, you know, live in front of people, and yeah, not for me, but
I would be awful at that, me.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
I would just have like, I'm one of those that like just procrastinates for ages and then just ends up with nothing. I'd just be like,
you'd just be trying to get one thing just right, and then you'd have like,
and I'd be like, okay, we've got a menu.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't work properly.
No, I think you want to build the broad strokes of the page, don't you? I think I'd how would I do it? I think I might structure the whole thing first, like the big sections, even if it's just background colors and columns and just chunks, big chunks with like titles, and then go chunk by chunk to see how far you could get.
Yeah, the teacher in me becomes in this, because the teacher in me says, well, what's the mark scheme? Because if I know what criteria I'm being assessed on, then I'll focus on those, not necessarily like if I'm focused on the number of elements that I get right, then I'm just going to get one right, you know.
I don't know if there's I don't know if there's a winner or a loser, you know, in the end. I don't know if they're being marked. I think it's just how close can you get to that final design. But yeah, I know
just
you're
the
saying.
Visual, that one looks better and closer, therefore we're going for that one type thing.
Yeah,
so,
I think so. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun.
A prize for the winner? Don't know.
Yeah, but like you say, how do you? Yeah, I guess
that's just Jamie can decide.
Elliot signed up. Elliot Richmond.
Ooh, brave,
well
bold.
Done to you, Elliot. I'm looking forward to that one.
Elliot will definitely be using this full site editor though.
I know. Maybe. Yeah.
So what would be good is have like
page builder.
Yeah, you'd have like page builder versus block editor, and then you kind of like Elementor versus Beaver builder, and Elementor versus block editor, and like
exactly. You could always have like the World Cup of like page builders. You can have a knockout tournament.
That would be quite funny. That.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, check those out too. They're pretty good. Pretty good.
Cool. We've got proposals on this list. We seem to have spent a week writing proposals. And it, as Keith's face has just said to you, it is painful, isn't it? I don't know. There's no shortcut for it, is there? There's stuff that you've just got to get into and write it. And so we do seem to have hit upon a few potential clients recently, don't we? We've had some inquiries come through. We've had some positive inquiries that feel like the right sort of customers to us. And I know we mentioned, I don't know if it was last time or the time before, we haven't really built any websites for a long time. We've been focusing on products and other things. So it's nice to have some inquiries come through for websites. It's nice to start to think about building websites again. And for me, like so much has changed already since we last built websites, probably 9-10 months ago. The stuff that the mechanisms we used to do X, Y, and Z, we're now thinking, well, we can actually do this now. Components is just a great example. We could actually start to use that now instead of some other tools. So, but yeah, those proposals have been spent a long time on them, haven't we? Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
I find it exhausting, like really, really, really tiring. Like yesterday, I was knackered. So I had a call in the morning. So it was our kind of like last call before we put the proposal together. So it was basically just going through and asking all the unanswered questions, all the kind of holes in our holes in the brief and the holes in the proposal, trying to fill all those gaps. So that call was over an hour, and it was like an hour and 10 minutes or something like that.
I enjoy those calls.
I quite like those calls as well. Yeah.
Do you like calls?
I was a bit nervous before that one because I just wanted to make sure I asked the right questions, and then I was on my own for that one. But
I love when you're on for that one, so that's on.
Yeah, that's all right. But I actually really enjoyed the call, and I do enjoy digging into the whys and like, why are you doing this, or we could do it this way, or have you thought about this thing? And we actually had another call like that this afternoon, or this morning, late morning. And it was really interesting because I think maybe what sets us apart from a lot of other agencies or freelancers is how detailed we go in these calls. It's not just tell us your brief and we'll promise you the world. It's like, why are you asking about this? Like, why have you got this in the brief? What do you mean by that? Like, tell me more about this thing. Have you thought about not doing that at all? Like, why do you need to do this thing?
I was
And
going
they're
to say, we
often like,
often go into
"Oh,
that, don't
yeah."
we? Like, I think that's a terrible idea. Why are you doing that? And then try and really, sometimes it sounds a bit not controversial, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? No, I can't remember the word.
Confrontational.
Confrontational, thank you.
Yeah.
But it's really good because it gets them thinking about why they want to do this thing. And so often we've had those conversations where you've asked that question, we want to do X, we want to do Y. Oh, why do you want to do that? What's that going to give you? That's actually quite hard to do. What do you think? This, and it causes these problems and these problems, but actually, there is some benefits to it. And then by the time you've had that conversation, they're like, yeah, I'm not sure we need that actually.
Yeah, there's a good example of that today. So this isn't a standard job like a recruitment website, but it involves jobs.
Yeah.
And part of the brief was we want like job alerts and save job functionality and all this kind of stuff. And we're like, do you? Like, and one of the things I said, I was like, your jobs are very persistent. Like these people, they have a set number of jobs that they're kind of like positions or roles that they're advertising for basically the whole year. And they wanted job alerts. So I was like, how many times are you going to is someone that signs up for this going to be alerted to a new job? And they're like, oh yeah, not really. Except for the ones in this particular occasion when we would send out an email saying that these positions are now available. And I was like, can we just do a newsletter? Like, can you just collect their email address and then send that email? And they're like, oh yeah, newsletter. That's a really good idea.
It's really good that.
So little things like that. And, we talked about they wanted a carousel in the hero because they've kind of currently got one, and it's how they showcase their featured programs. And you initially not took issue with that, but challenged that idea. Just basically, the carousels are rubbish. Why do you want one, kind of thing? And then we went kind of a bit further, and I was like, and actually, guys, like, whenever I landed on your website, I didn't have a clue who you were or what you did, because you're using that hero area to feature these programs. It doesn't even say featured programs. It just gives like a location on a picture. And I'm like, what is this? Like, who are you? What are you showing me? And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Never thought of that. It's like, yeah, I've got no idea who you are at this point, and you're showing me this rotating carousel of images of nice places. Like, so good calls though, but very time consuming.
Yeah, enjoyed the calls.
If we don't win,
it's annoying if you don't win them, but if you do,
win that, oh my god, yeah.
Let's see, maybe we need to use AI to like watch the call recording and say, Bill, write me a proposal based on this call.
Wow. Yeah.
And then obviously tweak it, but so it was good. How many pages was our proposal? Was it 16?
I don't know.
It seems a lot to me, but
it is a lot.
The more you get into it, the more you feel as though you've got to go into it. You can't miss this bit out. You can't summarize that, but you've got to state what you are and are not doing. And I find that quite hard to distinguish between.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because is this just a top level proposal, or is this a specification? Because I do feel like what these people making decisions about spending a reasonably large amount of money are going to want to know with a fair amount of certainty what they're spending their money on, what they're going to get. And unless you're doing like pure value pricing kind of thing, where it's just like, we'll make sure you make X amount more per year. Like, we can't do that. So we've got to tell them what they're going to get, and also we've put in what they're not going to get. We're quite clear about what we're not going to do as well, which I think is super, super important.
Experience tells you what the sort of things people expect you to put in what they expect you to do, and you were never expecting to do it, put it that way. It's like things for that are like, we always put in like SEO. We are not SEO consultants. We're not going to tell you how to write your content to be SEO, whatever the word is, friendly. But we do then go further to that and say, like, we do provide you with the basic on-site tools to enhance your own SEO with titles and descriptions and social image sharings and whatever else it is, and that seems to work quite well. Another one is email, isn't it? A lot of them sort of expect sometimes like, oh, I thought you were going to handle the email on the domain. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that. It seems obvious to me and you and probably everyone listening, but sometimes they don't see that. So it's
content migration and addition.
Yeah,
all that kind of
content.
Stuff.
Yeah, clear who's writing it, who's even if it's just copying and pasting it in, who's doing that. Yeah, who's migrating it, who's doing redirect URLs, all that sort of stuff. Important to put that in.
Yeah. Paul has said, if you don't win that pitch, then you've just given them 2 hours of free consultancy. I think it's more like 5 or 6 hours if you count all the time that both of us have put into this. So yeah. But like, what's the alternative? Like, just lob a number at them and with a bullet list of features.
I mean, this probably isn't what Paul's doing, but I read that and Paul's saying like, I don't do that. I do something else because that's free consultancy. And if that is the case, then what do you do instead? That's an interesting one. If that's not the case, then I apologize.
Yeah, because I feel like we really need to understand the project. Like we were given in both of these cases, we were given a brief, like not the best briefs in the world, not the worst briefs in the world. But like we had so many questions. Like how do you write a proposal without having answered those?
Yep.
And all the follow-up questions that answering those questions bring up, I just don't know how you do it without doing this process, unless you've got like a real like almost SaaS-like solution where it's like, this is what we do. We do X, we design X number of templates and we build this number of pages and we do this and that and the other. And it's like a menu of deliverables. But for me, the work we do is usually a bit more custom than that. Like we want to
definitely.
I don't know. Maybe we're wrong.
I don't know.
Maybe we're the dinosaurs.
Peter, thanks, Peter. It's fascinating how rarely clients actually think of their site's visitors' experience and what they are trying to achieve. Yeah, I think you're definitely right. I do think clients they get involved in their own side of the website too much, because they're in the content writing and they forget about what was it like from a visitor's point of view, because it's actually them that are important. And I think, it's easy to do. We all do it, and I think having those calls with the customers really does help them come back to the right, the other side of it, about what is it like for the person visiting the website, and tries to get them to start to think about that.
Yeah, so I think Peter's saying that the businesses are like, they focus on what they want to tell the customers rather than or visitors, rather than what the visitors are actually looking for and looking to try to do.
That slider thing is a good example. We need to tell them about our featured programs, but actually, fine. But before you do that, you need to tell them who you are and what you do.
Well, and maybe make it easy for them to find the things they've actually come to the website to find, not the things that you're struggling to fill. But there's a balance there, isn't there? I mean, Amazon is the classic example of a really poor user experience. Like they're putting their business needs first. So you go onto Amazon and you go onto like a product. What do you want? What do you want to see next? You want the product description. You want the reviews. That's basically kind of it, right? You want to know about the product. What Amazon does is it puts a whole lot of crap in between these things. Like maybe you want to buy this. Have you compared these products? Have you seen these things over here? Like those aren't good user experiences. That's Amazon's business needs before the user needs. So there is a balance.
This is Amazon. They must have tested this. They're not, they're a massive company.
No, exactly.
They're going to do what works. So
exactly.
That must work.
But what works isn't necessary. Like I shop on Amazon because it's quick. It's convenient. I know I can get stuff delivered really, really fast. I know they have like a massive range of products, and I know the price is normally good. I do not go there for a good user experience. Generally, so they're winning. I guess my point is that they can afford to elevate their business interests over their user interests because they're already doing such a good job in other areas.
I was chatting with my brother because my mum needed a new TV, and he was like, "Oh, we'll have a look on Amazon. They'll be cheaper on Amazon." And I was like, "I hate looking for like stuff like that on Amazon I find it really difficult to navigate. Yeah, they still sell millions and millions of them, I'm sure, because, of the other benefits, like you just mentioned.
It is. Amazon is getting a lot worse and worse. I don't know why we're getting a bit
Segue to
diverted.
Amazon.
But
people came for WordPress, not Amazon.
Yeah. But don't you find, though, you search on Amazon now, if you just do a generic product search, you're just bombarded with crap. Like crap products, the same product over and over and over again
from different sellers usually as well.
From different or are they different sellers, or are they the same seller with multiple brands? So like you're going through pages and pages of absolute garbage products before you ever see a brand that you've ever recognized.
There are almost too many products for each thing, aren't they? Like,
yeah,
I know.
And all like loads of like auto-generated stuff. I was looking for a t-shirt for my nephew yesterday. And I think it even says that these are like AI generated like t-shirts. So they kind of auto-generate them based on like memes, and they know the kind of text, and they just like show what that would look like on a plain black t-shirt, and then you just click order, and then it's just printed somewhere and sent to you. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, nuts. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on.
Where are we going next?
I think we should jump straight into your last point.
Right.
Yeah. Go for it.
So this, nothing like major here. This was just a tweet I came across. It was actually a tweet from Konstantin Kovshinin. Sorry if I've mispronounced that. And his tweet was, I felt the same way when the 3.5 media library rework happened. Everything before then made sense. Now only the parts I actually understand I used to refer as the legacy parts. So I think what he was saying is media went all to JavaScript, didn't it? And this was a kind of retweeting a tweet, which was from Joost de Voort, which is the
Joost. It is pronounced Joost.
Chap. Yeah. And he was saying that someone was sort of in a position where they used to contribute loads to WordPress, yet they found themselves, they just couldn't contribute now because it had all got too complicated and too difficult. So I just thought it was an interesting topic of discussion, because we've talked on this show loads about how WordPress has changed over the last 4 or 5 years, and the technologies that they've used, technology is the wrong word, languages that have been used, setup processes, build modes, all these sorts of things that have really changed. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't change, and I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying it is an interesting topic, because I see Konstantin as someone I've followed for a long time, as someone that probably would have the ability to contribute to WordPress. I'm pretty sure he has in the past. And here he's saying that I'm struggling. It just seems a shame. I don't know whether there's a solution to that. I don't know whether it's a problem, or is that just the natural evolution of a product that you will leave people behind that don't follow, that don't keep up. Maybe that's the case. But I don't know. Anyone here that's listening has contributed to WordPress. I think we're probably talking about code here, not necessarily other contributions. What was your experience? Because I do sit on this side, like I just don't feel I can contribute in terms of code. I don't understand the processes of getting to grips with contributing. We've talked a few weeks ago, like pull requests and the stuff that you use. And again, I don't think there's a solution to this. Maybe that's just, you've got to understand that stuff to get involved. That's fine. But that side for me makes it a barrier where I can't contribute in terms of a code sense, at least anyway, because I just don't have the technical skills to do so, definitely. And is there anything we can do about that? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't really know. Part of me, I know that a lot of people say if you haven't kind of kept up and you haven't learned React and whatever, that's on you. And I think there's probably something to be said for that. You can't expect to be able to contribute if you're not learning the languages that the platform is written in. That being said, I do feel like there's been a general attitude. It's just like, let's just get stuff done rather than worrying about the wider community being able to keep up. Like we know that Matt wants to move much faster than the project is currently moving at, and that means less time for outreach to other developers. It means less time for documentation, which I think is a huge part of this problem. It's just very, very hard to understand how things are going, like working. New features and APIs get released regularly with basically zero documentation behind them. That is not a criticism of anyone in particular, but I would say it's a leadership priority problem. I think I'd phrase it like that. So yeah, it's tricky. Like on Yoast's the thread to kind of his reply. There's a lot of people saying, yeah, I can relate to Ari's experience. So the developer is Ari Stathopoulos. I don't know Ari. I actually hadn't really come across him before, but apparently he's like a very, very highly regarded developer in the WordPress space. And I'll read his tweet because I'll read I don't think you've read it yet, have you, Mark? The original tweet. No. So Ari says, "I give up. I can no longer contribute to Gutenberg. I can't understand our code anymore. At this stage, it's alien to me, and it keeps getting more and more complex instead of simpler. I'm wasting too much time trying to understand what we do." And this is someone that's like really close to the project. So God help the rest of us, basically. I feel like at this point, yeah, WordPress core is for a small number of people. That knowledge is and capability is in the hands of quite a small number of people, and that's kind of just the way it is now. I don't know if things will settle down and like it'll open up again. Like once we've moved past this very fast stage of change, will things slow down to a point when actually people can kind of get back into it? I do also just think that, like, I think like you said, the whole thing has just got harder. Like, the way WordPress was built before was, for me, it's kind of fundamental. Like the reason for its fundamental success was that it was very, very easy to jump into and make changes and not necessarily contribute to, but just develop on top of. And that has changed because of the tools we're using. That has fundamentally changed, and that's not going to go back. So I think you have to be a better developer programmer today than you used to have to be to get involved and contribute and develop with WordPress.
I think better is an interesting word. I think modern might be the word. You do, definitely. You probably need to be a bit better than certainly I am anyway, put that way. But yeah. Some interesting comments on this. Courtney, thank you. Personal gripe. Unless you have a big voice in the community or on socials, you get no support or guidance on WP Core contribution. I've reached out to many and had little or no response. I obviously haven't had that experience. I haven't reached out and I haven't tried to contribute, so I can't comment on that. But that's not good if you can't get involved and you want to get involved, I think. And then following up from that, if you watch any interview with someone at Automatic about issues around Gutenberg, they'll all give a default response, get involved, contribute. Yeah, I agree. And that is so frustrating, isn't it? I can't do that. So what do I do? Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can, but it's hard. I think that's what's kind of glossed over. You just contribute, or it's like, how, honestly, like
I've had that said to me, like with documentation, just why don't you write it? And it's like, well, I don't understand it. Hence the reason why I need to read the documentation to learn it. Yeah. So I can't write the documentation.
You can't exactly.
Yeah. And Courtney as well says, I've personally made GitHub issues, requests, contributed to discussions. I'm on the Make WP Slack committed code and even had PRs merged, but nothing has made it into core. Waste of time, ? I suppose if it hasn't got into core, then ultimately it was a waste of time. But hopefully you learned something doing it and it's made you a better developer, if nothing else. But only you can answer that. That's a shame. Just coming back to what we said about like being on the Slack channel thing, I think the way in which core communicates is very targeted at a certain type of person. I find it extremely difficult to follow core on because it's all Slack chat-based stuff. It's just I can't keep up with it. I can't jump into a Slack channel. I've got rid of the WordPress Slack because there's so much noise on it that I can't follow it.
Can't follow things. Yeah. That's where the blog though. Like, I mean, I don't know how good a job they do, but like, do they summarize stuff on there regularly?
I think they do, but a lot of the times when I've asked questions like that, the answer becomes, why don't you get in the Slack channel on the Slack and yeah, but it's hard. That's really hard for me. So again, it's a distributed project. So how you actually solve that is difficult. I'm not saying the solutions are easy to this, but it is difficult for me to follow on Slack with text-based stuff like that. I just find it hard. And then Derek Long, thank you, Derek. God help the rest of us is definitely how I feel when I see much smarter people than me having problems.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I think we've probably finished. We've done 41 minutes, and this was a show where we didn't really have much to say. We always say that. Anyway, that's good.
We do.
Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully, we'll be getting back into a more consistent pattern of every Friday afternoon at 12:30 UK time. Holidays and summer and Easter holidays and kids' holidays and things have kind of settled down now. So fingers crossed we're back to a more consistent pattern. So you'll know to join us every Friday. If you need a reminder, then please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because you will get a notification when we are going live. We also do send out some tweets and stuff as well at WP Cafe Show. Do follow us if you like. And we love you to like this video if you've enjoyed this episode. It helps us out a lot. Anyway, until next week, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you then.
See you soon. Bye.